My parents abused me horrifically throughout my entire life. They are suing me for $75,000 for speaking out. Life is hell right now. I am a survivor of all forms of abuse at the hands of my parents. My life was made awful from as young as I can remember. My earliest memory is of my father shaking me before he threw me across my bedroom. My mother worked hard to gaslight anything I said growing up in order to maintain the functional facade they portrayed to the public. They look like wealthy, entitled, white Americans. I used to fall asleep sobbing for my grandmother, who knew what was going on in the home but never interfered. I was left to rot despite pleas for help. I was punished and isolated for trying to speak out or seek help. My parents would take away the books I was reading, or my sketchbooks, and force me to sit for days, weeks without stimuli. I was never allowed to keep any records within the home. My mother found my diary once when I was in high school and forced me to sit in the middle of the dining room while my father, mother, and sister took turns reading passages out loud and screaming at me. If my dad went on an unprovoked rage and broke our belongings or artwork, threw us around, or had a tantrum, my mother would rage at us for not being better. Once, my youngest sister spent hours in a bush at night during the polar vortex without proper clothing because she was too afraid to go home after my father lost his temper. My mother refused to call the police to look for her because she didn't want my dad to get a record. I was never allowed to use the phone or computer in the home without supervision and had no privacy, even as a teenager. My parents picked all of my class schedules in high school and kept me from getting a job, so I had no money to apply to any colleges. They forced me to attend a specialized engineering college they picked at the threat of financial abandonment, and I begrudgingly completed the degree my father had failed to earn himself. I have almost no detailed memories from this period of my life or beforehand, it's all just a vague fog. They actively tried to keep me from going to medical school and I had to petition for independence from them, citing horrific abuse to continue my education. Myself and my two sisters all have very severe, undiagnosed eating disorders because my parents didn't believe in mental health care. We were never allowed to see doctors growing up unless we were sick for weeks or severely ill. Instead, my parents would wait to hear my sisters vomiting in the bathroom and would barge in and humiliate them while they were in the shower or on the toilet, screaming that they were hurting the family with their choices. My parents do not allow my sisters to contact me. Last time I saw my youngest sister, she was 5 feet 4 inches and weighed 90 pounds. My father had numerous affairs with naive, impressionable women who were closer to me in age than my mother. Usually they were his employees. He and my mother still tried to tell my sisters and I that if they ever got divorced, it was our fault because we were so exhausting and bad. I remember a handful of times when I mentioned emancipation or running away. I was locked away in isolation for 2 weeks because of even mentioning it. I decided to cease contact in November of 2019. Everything was good for a while. I changed my name, I moved state, and as far as they were aware, I had disappeared. I was finally starting to live life without the fear of being unalived every day. But they found me. They effing found me and have the audacity to sue me. They are suing me for $75,000 and they are attempting to permanently silence me about my childhood through the civil courts. Their lawsuit is based on a single Facebook post. A video linked to Dr. Ramani's page regarding narcissistic abuse by parents, which they found on my private Facebook page. This post was 5 days away from being past the statute of limitations when they happened to stalk my profile using someone else's Facebook and saw it. My parents' lawyer is a well-known alt-right lawyer. They attempted to sue me during my final year of veterinary medical school, hoping to bankrupt me during the most rigorous point in my studies. They have dragged my younger siblings, who are still reliant on them for survival, into the mess to testify against me, despite the level of evidence I have against them. My father calls me crazy in his legal documents against me, and my mother attempts to blame me for everything wrong in her and my siblings' life. She blames me for my minor sibling having a bad high school experience when my father had an affair with his employee and got forced out of his job, so they had to relocate my sibling to another high school across the state. Apparently that is my fault. My affidavit is a 50 pages of detailed remembered traumas at their hands with drawings, texts, and other evidence included.